We have Faith Promise offering, and each week this money comes in over and above the tithe, and so that's how we provide for our missionaries. Now, in the near future, we would like to add several new missionaries. I'd like to even support another local ministry here, the Broken Chains Prison Ministry. And then again, there's a lot of other worthwhile causes and missions throughout the world. But again, we can't add missionary support unless there's more giving, that type of thing. So pray about it. Again, this is an amount that we give to Faith Promise over and above our tithes. Some people will give $10 a week, which is really a big help, and others even more. So again, I wanted you to see how the mission dollars, how we fund our missionaries. And so I'm going to have Ken come, and Ken, again, has been in the field for a lot of years. He was saved at the age of 19 in 1976. I was still in high school, just to let you know, Ken. And during a youth camp of the same year, he dedicated his life to the Lord for full-time service. He and his wife, Cindy, have 3 children, Joy, Caleb, and Faith. So let's give Ken a hand, all right? Come on up.
Thank you, sir. As Pastor mentioned, the church has been supporting us for a long time, and I just want to thank you for allowing us to represent you in Australia. We'd also like to give you an invitation to come visit. Where we're living right now, it's fairly remote. We don't get many preachers or visitors in general. We get very seldom do we get a preacher to come see us. And so, Pastor, if you would ever be able to have the opportunity to come up that way, we would love it. My people would love it. You'd be a celebrity there because basically the only person they hear is me. And so you'd be a celebrity there. They enjoy hearing other people speak, and it'd be a real blessing. We've been in Australia. The church has been supporting us for around 22 years. We've been in Australia for about 20 years. Initially, there's a church in the Sydney area, Sherwood Hills Baptist Church, that invited us to come work with them. That's how we got into the country. And honestly, they really helped us, made us feel at home, and helped us with the language. Now, even though Australia, they speak English, it's a little bit different than American. And sometimes Australian slang can get you in trouble in America, and American slang can get you in trouble in Australia. But sometimes I say I can speak, I'm multilingual now because I can speak at least 3 different languages. I can speak Australian, good day, mate. I just don't have the accent after 20 years. I just don't have it. I can speak American, hello, and I can speak a little bit of West Virginian. So I have a wide range of languages that I can speak. We initially were going to stay there for a year and move up to Darwin. But the church asked if we would consider staying another year because the Sydney 2000 Olympics, we were a big outreach there. We passed out thousands of New Testaments and tracts. And partly because of gratitude, they really did help us when we first went to Australia to acclimatize to the culture there. And also because of the opportunity of the Olympics in 2000, we stayed an additional year. And if you may recall, it was also during that time that we discovered my wife had cancer. Now, as I mentioned, Darwin is fairly remote, and they didn't have the medical facilities that we would have needed. And so we really didn't know exactly what we were going to do. But what happened is the pastor that we were working with, he couldn't, health reasons, he was no longer able to continue pastoring. And so the church asked if I'd stay as interim pastor. And we did that for about 4 or 5 years while Cindy was going through cancer treatments. And again, the church there, we experienced some really good growth. We had a Christian school, and we still have a lot of really dear friends there, and God really blessed. After about 5 years, Cindy was declared cancer-free, and we had the opportunity to come home for furlough, and we did that, and then we moved back to Australia, moved up to Darwin, and we didn't know anybody there. And to be honest with you, our first 9 years or 8 years, I guess, in Darwin was just tough. We had a number of people coming, but there are a lot of different church backgrounds, and I thought good preaching would get us all doctrinally together. It didn't, so maybe it wasn't real good preaching. You can decide that today when you hear me. But they're good folks, good families, but they didn't have a heart for outreach. And I began a series of lessons on spiritual gifts, and I was really excited about sharing the gifts in the book of Romans. Nobody got excited about those gifts. All they wanted was the gifts of Corinthians. And so one Sunday morning, I was preaching on, do you have to speak in tongues in order to be saved? Now, for most of us here, that's sort of, we're saved by grace through faith, not of yourselves, not of works, lest any man should boast. And so that's a pretty simple message, but there it's pretty controversial. And I knew I had some people that weren't real happy with me. Some thought I was too hard, and some thought I was too soft on these issues. And that morning we had a young man come. His name was Nathan. He was probably about 26 years old at the time. A good-looking young man. Cindy met him at the door when he came into we rent a school, and when he came into the auditorium area, Cindy met him, and he said, I'm looking for faith. And Cindy said, oh, you're looking for faith? He said, no, not that faith. I'm looking for faith, our youngest daughter's faith. And so Cindy's kind of a protective mom, and she said, you're looking for my faith? Her daughter? And he said, yes. His mom was working with Faith at a daycare, and we didn't know it at the time, but Nathan had just gotten saved, and he was looking for a church. And again, we didn't know it at the time, but the churches that he had been going to were trying to force him into speaking in tongues in order to be saved. And he had just gotten saved, and he knew that wasn't part of salvation. And so he's looking for a church where he can grow in things. Now, we didn't know any of that stuff, but I talked to him briefly, and honestly, when I came to the platform to speak, I thought, Lord, this message is going to miss him entirely. It's not going to help him. It's not going to be relevant to him. And I would have probably changed my message, but I didn't have anything else prepared. So I preached it, and Nathan came up to me afterwards, and he sort of hunched his shoulders a little bit and said, that was good. And he's been with us ever since. And honestly, I've never met anyone who's more passionate for God than Nathan. Before he got saved, he had been in the Army. He got kicked out because of drugs. He'd been involved in mixed martial arts, and he's fought in the ring several times. And he was a male stripper. He was a bodybuilder and a male stripper. But he'd gotten saved, and he was looking for a church. And he talks to everybody. And it was through Nathan we met a girl by the name of Heidi. Now, Heidi was probably 24 at the time. She's part Aboriginal. She is a kickboxer. Her goal was to become a professional fighter. She was filled with anger, and Heidi got saved. And then through them, we met a girl by the name of Corinne. Corinne was probably 27 at the time, and she was a party girl, drugs and alcohol. And the first 4 Sundays in church, honestly, I thought, there's no hope. All she did was cry, and there's a fog, and I talked to her, and I just couldn't get through the fog, but God did, and Corinne got saved, and God changed her life. Then a boy by the name of Cam, he was a homosexual, he came along, and all this is happening in the last 3-4 years, and everybody else has left. But we have this group of young people starting to come, and Cam got saved. And then a boy by the name of Reuben. Now, Reuben's just a daredevil. He's jumped out of an airplane some 600 times. He was a party animal. I'd not heard of this before, but he would actually take a shot glass and pour it in his eye because I guess the alcohol gets into the blood system quicker. I just think it would hurt, And but he got saved, and God changed his life. He has a passion for passing out tracts, and he was living with a girl by the name of Megan. And when he got saved, they stopped having sex together. And Megan began to come to church. And Megan got saved. And sweet girl. And anyways, the reason she got saved, she started jumping out of planes too, and she started wondering, what if my parachute doesn't open? And so she ended up getting saved. And about 6 months ago, after they got saved, I had the privilege of marrying them and baptizing them. And probably a year or so ago, they had a little boy named Zeph, and they bought a yacht, and their plans were to sail around the coast of Australia. They only got about a fourth of the way. and Zeph just wasn't tolerating the ocean life too well, so they're selling the yacht, and they're located in Brisbane. And about a month or two ago, I had an opportunity to stop by and see them. And where they're at, it's fairly, it's out of the way a little bit. There's no churches that have a Wednesday night service, and so he's having his own Wednesday night service, and he asked me to come, and he's leading it, doing a really good job. But what was most amazing, it's sort of an open format a little bit at his house. Megan, she started sharing some things, and I'm thinking, because in 6 months' time, she's just grown by leaps and bounds. And the sad thing, she's been gone from us for 6 months, I can't take any credit for all that growth, but it was exciting to see him. And then we had a young man by the name of Andrew come along. Andrew's a professional bodybuilder. He's the best in Australia. It's called for the Pro Fitness model. And he's about 27 years old. And he was on a search for truth. He came over a year to our church before he got saved. And he's committed and disciplined physically. He's disciplined. And I'll give you his last name, but you might be tempted to go look, but he's also disciplined in his diet, but also spiritually. He has some real depth to him. And currently we have 6 or 7 young men who are speaking while I'm away. And that's exciting for me. I don't have to worry about what they're going to say. Before, when we had the other folks at our church, when I'd go away, I'd always have to be afraid of what they were going to say while I was gone. And these guys, they're just solid. And I don't have to be afraid of what they're going to say. And Andrew, he's just an outstanding young man. He's on social media, Twitter and YouTube and all those kind of things because he's a professional athlete and he gets paid to do those kind of things. And we're really glad that he recently got a clothing sponsor, okay? Because now he has a shirt on, And then we had a young lady, she's about 45 years old, and at my age, everybody started to seem young. She came up to me on a Sunday morning after church and said, Pastor, I'd like to be saved. Now, first of all, I was shocked because that just doesn't happen very often in Australia. Secondly, I was really shocked because I was preaching a series on Samson because I had, all these young people coming and, they are living with people. And so I'm hitting Samson pretty hard, stay out of the vineyard and all that kind of stuff. And she came up and got saved and said she wanted to be saved. I had the privilege of leading her to the Lord. And she's just a sweet lady. She's married, has 4 children. Her husband's not saved. Her 4 kids aren't saved. And sometimes she gets discouraged because of that, because she doesn't have anybody she can share with at home. And she said to Cindy, but you can't unsee what you've seen. And she's just a sweet lady, loves sewing and homemaking and cooking, and she's been a real asset to my wife. They get along really well. Then we had a young man by the name of Anthony get saved. Now, Anthony is Andrew's brother, and he's also a bodybuilder, which is really funny. I got all these young people, 25 to 30, and they're bodybuilders, and some of them appeared on magazine covers and all that kind of stuff. Although, preacher, someone did tell me the other day I had the body of a a body of a god, and I was sort of thinking Hercules, but he said Buddha, and that wasn't quite the compliment I was hoping for. But Anthony at the time was doing 2 a day. He'd go to the gym at 6 in the morning and at 6 at night to lift weights. And one Monday morning, I went to the gym early. As you've probably noticed, that doesn't happen very often. And I saw him. And Anthony's fairly quiet. But this day, man, he's radiant. And he came up to me and said, Pastor, I got saved last night. And man, he's such a blessing. He doesn't have all the gifts that Andrew has, his brother. He's kind of shy. But for the first time in approximately 12 years, I don't set up the chairs. He does that. He goes in early. He hangs a sign. He has the keys to the building that we rent. And he's taken charge of that. In fact, it sounds kind of funny, but yesterday, Sunday morning over there, our speaker, Nathan, was supposed to speak, but he got really, really sick. And Andrew was at a bodybuilding competition. Oftentimes they use him to judge competitions. And he's not shy about sharing the gospel. He has an opportunity to talk to people I'd never have an opportunity to talk to. And so he judges a lot of events in Australia. And so he wasn't there. Nathan was really sick. And so Cindy called Anthony. And Anthony had started a series. We're doing a series on the book of Jonah. He did the introduction, but he's been studying along. I gave him a little booklet that I had written on it, and he said he could cover it. And Cindy wrote me last night and said he did a really good job. And also we had a lot of visitors. I think we're having more visitors with me away than we do when I'm there. And here's the additional story. About a year ago, Anthony and Corinne got married. I had the privilege of marrying them. And the exciting thing is Corinne, because of her past and all the mistakes and all the dumb stuff she did, she never thought she'd have a godly husband, but God's given her one. And now she's expecting. And man, it's exciting because she thought, because of all the mistakes of her past, she would never have a child. And in fact, when she became pregnant, she was really scared that God was going to take this child as punishment because of the mistakes of the past. But now she's embracing it, and she's really excited about what's happening. And then we have a girl by the name of Courtney gets saved. Now, Courtney's a really pretty girl. Her and Andrew, they were living together. When Andrew got saved, he stopped having sex with her. She didn't understand. She, in fact, thought he found somebody else. And I guess you could say he did. But she's gotten saved. And God's working in her life. She's growing. There's some things that happened in her past that were tragic and horrible. And she didn't know if she could trust God. And so it took a long time. And she's become a really good close friend with Cindy. And Cindy's, I think, honestly, we're sort of like parents to the, because most of them didn't really have parents that would guide them. Most of them done about everything you could do in the world. And now they've come to Christ, and they're passionate, and they love God. Actually, they put me to shame. Nathan, on Friday nights, likes to go pass out tracts. That's not too bad, but he likes to go to Mitchell Street. That's where all the bars and the nightclubs are. That's where he used to strip. And he goes there at 10 o'clock at night, and I go with him occasionally because I'm the pastor. And I'm embarrassed not to, but I don't want to go there. And so these guys they love God. They're passionate. They're growing. 2 years ago, we had a young man by the name of Dylan come for the first time. Every year, in November, we celebrate American Thanksgiving, and the Australians love it. They've seen it on television, but they've never experienced it. And so, they'll come. In fact, one year, we had 70 people come to our house for Thanksgiving, and we just have a small 3-bedroom house. And I was kind of scared, not only because of the number of the people, but also because my daughter, Faith, she invited everybody from work to our house. And Darwin's fairly rough. Most people either are involved in drinking and sport, or drinking and hunting, or drinking and fishing. By the way, if you like fishing, there's some really good fishing up there. Or drinking and drinking. I mean, it's just a pretty rough area. And I thought, how am I going to, there's about 30 people from her work coming. How am I going to take care of them? But honestly, they were so easy to take care of. And every year at Thanksgiving, we have everybody share something they're thankful for. And a lost person can say, I'm thankful for my husband, or I'm thankful for my job, or I'm thankful for my wife, or I'm thankful. They can find something they're thankful for. And then a number of our people will share what they're thankful for, and they'll show their testimony, what God's done in their life. And it's become a really good outreach. As a result of that, Dylan ended up getting saved. Now, his girlfriend, her name is Brooke. She's still not saved. She's been coming for 2 years. She comes on Sundays and Wednesdays. She just got a job at the gym. Andrew and Nathan, they own a gym. And so she started working at the gym. And so every day, she's going to be talked to, because Nathan, he's just over the top. He's just crazy. And Andrew will come alongside and says, "What's the truth? What's truth?" And he has these deepest discussions with him. And so we're just really excited about what God's been doing. About 3.5 years ago, we were ready to give up. I'll be honest with you, it was just tough. We weren't seeing many people saved. We'd see it one occasionally, every once in a while. Nothing really was happening, and it was almost like we was playing church, you know. And we actually put our house up for sale, and we had a good offer. The first week it was up, but my wife was in the States at the time. Our oldest daughter has diabetes, and she was really having a rough time, and so Cindy came back to help take care of her. And I would have sold the house, except Cindy was in the States, and I didn't want to sell it when she wasn't home. That was the last offer we got on that house, and I'm really glad. Because if we would have sold it then, we would have missed out on all that God's done. We have a group of people coming. We have a number of lost people coming every Sunday. They're still not saved. It takes time. You have to build relationships with people in Australia. Mateship is a real fact of life there. It just takes time. And we have a young man by the name of, they call him Matty. He's coming along. He grew up in a Christian home, was never saved. As soon as he got out of school, he went bush, worked on a cattle station, and did all that stuff, and got really far from God. And he's just started coming to our church, and he comes to our church because of the Bible. Because, you know, some churches don't teach the Bible, and so he comes because of the Bible. We don't have a lot to offer people. I wish we had more. In fact, if your piano player would like to come to visit us for a while, you know, you're welcome for up to 3 weeks, okay? And if you play the piano, you can stay indefinitely. But Matthew's coming. He's met a girl by the name of Becca. She was born in China, grew up in Hong Kong, spent quite a bit of time in London. Very successful young lady. She's about 29 years old. They're coming to church now. And it's funny, in Australia, we have our Wednesday night Bible study at the house. It seems just to really work well. We have about 15 people coming to the house on Wednesday nights. And in Australia, when someone leaves, you don't walk them to the door and say, bye. In Australia, you walk them all the way to the car. You know, that's just what you do. And also, I carry a torch or a flashlight because we have 5 acres where we live, and we have lots of snakes. About 3 weeks ago, I was here in the States, and we had a young couple come to see Cindy, and they have a little boy, probably 18 months old, and we just got some new silky chickens. And so Cindy said, would you like to see the new chickens? Because they're just, you know, when they're really young, they're really cute. And they went to the chicken house, and there's an 8-foot python. He was eating 2 of our chickens. Fortunately, the guy, he liked that kind of stuff, and so he captured the snake alive and removed it. We got lots of snakes and stuff. Also, we've had some big spiders, okay, size of a dinner plate. Anybody want to come to Australia? I probably need to work on my sales pitch a little bit. But anyways, we got to the car, and he's just open and honest. He said, you know, he's been saved, Beck's a Christian, and they want to do right. They believe God's brought them together. But he said, but when you start kissing, you know, he says, man, where do you stop? And he asked me, where do you draw some guidelines? And so the next Sunday, I preached on some guidelines. And afterwards, I didn't know how it was going to go over. He came up to me and said, thank you. And Beck came and said, thank you. Now, I didn't realize, but his dad is the former chief minister of the Northern Territory, which would be sort of like the governor. He was there in church that Sunday. And he says, I don't know what's happening. He's a Christian man, and Terry Mills is his name. He came up to me and said, I don't know what's happened, but God has really worked in Matthew's life. He's witnessing to all the family members, telling them what God's done in their life. And again, we want to thank you for your part in our ministry, not only your financial support, but for praying for us. And we really appreciate the opportunity of representing you. I'm going to take about 5 minutes, if that's all right, and share a truth. I think it's a really neat one, so I won't take a long time. I have to say, though, I do have a unique gift. I don't speak long. It just seems like it, okay? But Psalm 147, and I'll try not to take too long. In Psalm 147, the Bible says this, praise you the Lord, for it is good to sing praises under our God, for it is pleasant and praises comely. Psalm 147, verse 2, the Lord doth build up Jerusalem. And by the way, when you look at me and you think about the people that God's given us, we know it's not me. Humanly speaking, it would be Nathan. Now, Cindy and I, we've come along and watered that seed and nourished it, but it's God who gave the increase. And so here it says, the Lord doth build up Jerusalem. He gathered together the outcast of Israel. He healeth the broken in heart, and bindeth up their wounds. He telleth the number of the stars. He calleth them all by their name. Great is our Lord, and of great power. His understanding is infinite. And so the psalmist is talking about the greatness of God and the power of God and how his understanding is infinite. And to illustrate that, he says he telleth the number of the stars. Now in 150 BC, there's a Greek astronomer. His name was Archippus, I believe. He counted 1,026 stars. Now, I don't know how you do that. You know, if I was counting stars, I'd go 1, 2, 3. Did I get that one or not? You know what I mean? But he counted 1,026. 150 years later, Ptolemy came along. He counted 156. So he got 30 extra stars. Maybe he had better eyesight. In 1608, Galileo, with a telescope, he counted 30,145 stars. But today, scientists will tell us we really don't know how many stars there are. In fact, in Jeremiah chapter 33, the Bible says the host of heaven cannot be numbered. But God knows the number of the stars. And that's amazing. But it also says, and he calls them all by their name. So not only does he know how many stars there are, but he knows each of their names. And Spurgeon said, listen, if we have a God who knows the names of the stars, you can be assured that he knows your name. And so he talks about the greatness of God and how powerful he is and how he knows the number of the stars, he knows all their names. And in the midst of that, he says this, he healeth the broken in heart. And so perhaps there's someone here who has a broken heart. The reason I'm back in America right now is my mom has cancer. And my sisters called me, said there was something in the blood work. They don't know what it was, but they asked if I could come back. And we were able to, a couple months ago, come back for about 4 or 5 weeks, or excuse me, 6 weeks. And we found out she had cancer. After Mom left the room, I talked to the doctor, and I was trying to find out how much time has left. But before I could ask a question, I started to cry. And, you know, I'm a pastor. I'm supposed to be strong. I'm supposed to take care of people. And, but I started to cry. I don't know how much time Mom has left. She has a surgery. She's 91. She's ready to go. She has surgery on Tuesday. We're a little scared about that. We're not sure what's going to happen. But maybe there's somebody here. You've lost a loved one and your heart's breaking. Or maybe there's been some disappointments in life. Some things that you hope to accomplish, some things you hope to do, or something of that nature that you realize that you may never have the opportunity of doing. Or maybe it's a sin issue. Maybe you've done some things that you never thought you would have done. Or maybe your kids have gotten away from God. You tried to raise them up in church. You tried to do right. None of us are perfect parents or anything like that. But perhaps this morning there's some people here who have a broken heart. I want to encourage you that we have a great God. We have a powerful God. We have an awesome God. We have a God who not only knows the number of the stars, he knows every one of their names. And he knows your name. In fact, the Bible teaches that he has the very hairs on our head numbered. And I got, well, maybe I don't have most of you beat, but I have some of you beat because he has both of mine named, okay? I was being kind of optimistic there. And we have a God that can heal the broken heart. The songwriter said it this way. Are you tired of chasing pretty rainbows? And are you tired of spinning round and round? Wrap up all the shattered dreams of your life, and at the feet of Jesus lay them down. Give them all, give them all, give them all to Jesus. Shattered dreams, broken hearts, wounded lives. Give them all, give them all, give them all to Jesus, and he will turn your sorrow into joy. The psalmist says we have a great God. We have a powerful God. We have an awesome God. We have a God who not only knows the number of the stars, but he knows every one of their names. And in verse 3 of that same context, he says, we have a God that can heal the broken heart. Listen, if you have a broken heart, some things have happened and you don't understand why, you don't know what's going on, I want to encourage you today. We have a great God. We have a powerful God. We have an awesome God, a God who knows the number of the stars. He knows every one of their names, and he knows your name. He knows what you're going through. And we have a God that can heal the broken heart. George Mueller said this. He said, it's amazing what God can do with a broken heart, provided we give him all the pieces. We appreciate you folks. You mean a lot to us, and we thank God for you, Pastor.
Thank you, Ken. Yes. We're going to dismiss you. Thank you, Ken. You touched my heart. God is a great God, isn't he? And he's able to heal the broken, and that's why he came. So, again, thank you. And Ken will be preaching in the next service, so you have about 15 minutes. Father, thank you again for this message. He said he'd only speak for just a few moments, but it was really powerful in the fact that we are a part of lives being changed across the world. And even the message this morning to heal our hearts.